We've put in a good shift over the month of January in terms of, every weekend we've been in camp, and the ladies have been training throughout the week as well in terms of their gym. So this is the time where we can download a little bit until we get into camp tomorrow, and then starts to really focus on the game.
It's been an interesting transition, I guess. We talked earlier about the fact that you had a very short lead into the tournament last year. Has it helped maybe with familiarity to have camps with these players, to have had a November series with them as well, just in terms of you getting used to them as well?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and also the fact that now we can focus on some of the finer details of the game, which last year was more so about trying to adapt to a different type of style and making sure that we could play the game with the heads up kind of philosophy, but now we can actually nitpick a little bit more on the players in terms of what coaches are doing, but also that the players themselves know what's required and what they're trying to do as well. So it's definitely helped.
Having watched your team in the Six Nations last year and seen some of the highlights from the November internationals as well, heads up rugby is the type of rugby you're playing. You try and play to a high tempo, move the ball around. Is that the philosophy you want to carry forward with this team?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think they're starting to see some of the benefits of it, and obviously you put your game plans in place and how you can create some of that space and making sure that we do our analysis on opposition teams. But for the most part, it's definitely about making sure we can try and move the ball to space, put teams under real pressure in terms of their defence, and cause a little bit of chaos for them.
Not all the players are gone from the championship winning teams, but we are probably transitioning into a different period now post the last World Cup. You've capped a lot of players over the last year and a half as well.
Yeah, I think we need to start somewhere. Almost, after World Cups, there's always that cycle of player retirement and things like that. And certainly in the women's game, while we're not professional, players have other things to do in their lives as well in terms of work commitments and things like that. So I think there was always going to be probably a higher number of caps, but I'd like to think now, with the odd 40-odd players that we've used, there might be a little bit more of a settling period there, because they're starting to really see the benefits of coming into the squad now, and those ones that are still there have helped push them along as well.
Is there a little bit of a balancing act between 15s and 7s still? Because some players who've been in with the 15 squad are in Sydney at the moment for the Sydney Sevens. Is there an understanding through the RFU who they're available for when? What's that relationship been like?
Well, it's fine. I think people might not know, but I work with the Sevens during the week as well. So while our 15s are all weekends because of the players' other commitments, I'm with the Sevens group as well. So that's allowed me to see players training day in, day out, and then obviously what they do on the World Series is important to them as well. So myself and Anthony are in current dialogue. I have a desk right next to him. So we've had some pretty clear guidelines and know what's happening with those players as well. But you also can't underestimate what they can bring to a side, because while we've got some experience in our 15s, they get to compete against the high-level athletes, each World Series. So they're more than capable of stepping into a 15s jersey as well.
Well, there's no risk that some of your key frontline players might be taken away for sevens, because you remember last year 3 of the most experienced players went off to play, and I can totally understand that was a World Cup qualification year, but do you still have, I suppose, first call for the Six Nations period over who you can play?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's first call, but as I say, because myself and Anthony work so close, we've got it pretty clear of who will be a 15, who will be a regular in the 15s, and then who in those sevens can help bolster some of the positions that maybe we lack a little bit of depth in.
Team selection wise, Lindsay Peat didn't quite get back. How close is she to actually being fit now?
Yeah, we're hoping, within the next couple of weeks that she'll really push on. Her rehab in the last 2 weeks has really stepped up, and as I say, it would have been great to have her back for a game like this, but she's just not quite there yet. But we are hoping that in the next kind of 2 weeks she'll step up again.
I'm sure you're delighted. A player with huge experience and big try scoring in Alison Miller got the knee injury last year, and I know she was very frustrated when it happened. To have her back, albeit on the bench for this week, must be a big boost to your squad.
Yeah, the way she handles herself in the group in terms of her leadership and experience as well is something that's really key, and we've got some younger players around that back three and in the midfield as well that we are hoping in the next 5 years they'll be regulars in Ireland. So for them to have someone like Ali in there who's been there and done it is really important. But it also highlights what a determined player she is, that she didn't want to go out with an injury and that be her career. She worked really hard to get back, and it's the fruit of her labour now that she's got a bench spot this week.
I've been reading as well that I guess with the very nature of players who are in single-digit caps and some of them who are very young, you've had to maybe make up little groups, and some of those experienced players have been trying to pass a bit on to them as well.
Yeah, the team culture is a big thing for me. I guess my background coming from New Zealand as well, we've put a lot of emphasis on that. And this is just another way of, I suppose, creating that environment that helps the younger players come through. But it actually works on the flip side for the older players as well, because when you take responsibility for something like that, you get some pride in it as well. So it's almost rejuvenated the older players, that they are showing that support to the younger players as well, and know that really there's a bigger picture here, and that'll be the green jersey whether they're here or not in years to come.
Because you've cast the net pretty wide. You would have, I guess, had a knowledge from being an interprovincial coach beforehand, but development squads are brought in, trials were had. You've looked at a lot of players over the last year.
I think it's really important. While we don't have an under 18 or an under 20, 15 aside team at the moment, we need to be putting those steps in place in terms of the development. So that was certainly my thinking on it. I know even with my work with the under 18 sevens national team, there's players there that are going to come into AAL in the next year or two that we want to make sure they push on. So it was almost about tracking them as well and making sure that we can keep an eye on these talented players, because, as I say, while we're not professional at the moment, there are those outside influences of other sports and other work and college commitments that sometimes can take those younger players away from the game. So that was certainly in the back of my mind, that we've seen this talent now, well then how do we make sure we hold on to it and track it,
I'm sure you'd love to be in the same position as England at the moment, where they can hand out 30 contracts and have 7 players on effectively semi-pro contracts as well. I'm not sure how sustainable that would be in this country, but that'd be the dream, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be working towards that, and I think you can see in the last, even 5 years, the exposure the women's game has got from where it was is just growing and growing. So it's great for in England that they're able to do something like this now. I don't think probably our player pool and our numbers are there yet to really sustain that, as you say, but it's certainly the end goal in the next 5-10 years that, of course, we want these players being able to be professional, because, well, one, it helps them look after their body and makes them perform better as well, but it doesn't add the stresses of the other things of life that can get in the way sometimes.
The results haven't been great against England over the last 2-3 seasons. I guess that's understandable given how strong they are. What kind of task are you facing this Friday night then?
Well, I think it's going to be a huge task because, as you say, they've been in camp now for the month of January full time, and whether they say that hasn't helped them that much on the field or not, I'm not sure, but I guess for us, we want to make sure that we're going to be putting out a performance that's representative of ourselves and the work we've done. It's important for us. We spoke about it as a group that we want to be a team that's really hard to beat, and us putting our best performance in probably will be capable of that. So we just want to make sure that when we go out on Friday night, that England know they're in a test match and we're putting our best foot forward. And I think if we can do that, you'll see us stretch them. We're looking back at the game in November, and we really put them under a lot of pressure in terms of some of the tries we scored, but even our ball retention. We held on to possession for the ball a lot longer than we might have before, and if you can do that consistently through a game, well then they're going to break down a lot more. So we probably just haven't been in that zone before, but I'm hoping this Friday that we can show that.
Is it tricky having to play, say, England, Wales across November internationals and tournaments before this, that you might show your hand a little bit just before the tournament? I guess it's the nature of the fact that maybe you don't have as wide a pool of teams to play in test matches.
Yeah, I think probably if teams are looking at us, they will know a good core of our players and what our players can do. But in terms of game plans and things like that, and I mean, video analysis is out there now. The likes of the Opta site, we can get most games that are played now, and it's the same for those nations as well, that they can watch our games. So I'm not too worried about that. It's never really concerned me that a team might look at some of the things we do and go, well, now we know what they're doing. They've still got to go out there and stop you doing it on the field. So we definitely have a couple of things up our sleeve that we haven't used yet. But in terms of them analysing us and stuff, it wouldn't be a big concern.
Adam, I'm feeling you're going to say Friday is the only focus, but in terms of this competition generally, is there a goal in mind for what you'd like to achieve in the Six Nations?
Well, we definitely want more wins than last season. As you say, I think now that the players have a better feel for what we're trying to do, and we didn't have as big a lead in time last time. We only had the 2 wins last year, and although we still finished third, we would love to be able to get some more wins under our belt. So, for me, we want that top 3 finish for sure. Of course, it is about this Friday, but we also got to look at some of the tough away games we're playing as well. The likes of Scotland, Italy, and Wales. They're never going to be easy at home either. So, focus is Friday, but yeah, we definitely know what we're trying to get out of this whole championship.
I suppose the argument would be you've got the two hardest teams at home, France defending champions, England kind of perennial challengers in this competition, and then the teams you'd be expecting to win are probably the away trips then.
Yeah, I mean, expected to win's a tough one because, as you say, as I've just said, it could happen to anyone on the day. You know, you can pull out a great performance, and you know, England at home and France at home is always great to have the support behind you, but it probably doesn't make them any easier, you know, in terms of what they're going to do on the field. So we've got to just make sure that, as I say, we get a performance that we know we're capable of, and if we can do that, I think the results can definitely be thrown in the air.
Just on the final note, away from your squad, as a coach, do you feel you've developed over the last year or so now?
Yeah, definitely. It's always a learning curve when you go into new environments, and certainly the national environment for me was the starting point where you've got players coming from all the different provinces, you know, so I've obviously been coaching, but it's always been players in one province, so that was a lot easier. So even in terms of the things that we're doing in terms of the culture and environment off the field has become quite important, and managing those things is probably the biggest learning curve for me at the moment, but it's really exciting and I'm enjoying it. So when you get some good responses from players that they're also enjoying it, that's always positive for me, and probably now we just want to make sure that equals results.